So I'm here at the Shackleton Autumn School with Lorna Siggins. Lorna will be interviewing Mensun Bound, and Lorna is Ireland's sort of leading maritime expedition journalist. So I'm going to ask her a few questions and let's see how it all goes. Hi Lorna, welcome to the Shackleton Autumn School.
Thank you.
You've been a great supporter over the years, and thanks very much for all of that. How did you first come across Shackleton?
So I work in the Irish Times. I worked in the Irish Times, and I covered general news but also marine issues, because my background when I came into journalism was writing about marine. I had worked for a magazine called The Irish Skipper about the fishing industry, and I wrote for Afloat and other marine publications. So when I was in the Irish Times, part of my work was involved in marine, but also I had an interest, I suppose, in adventure. I had been asked to go to Everest with the first Irish expedition to Everest in 1993, and Dawson Stelfox made it to the top, and the Irish Times was a supporter of that expedition. And then a couple of years later, some members of that expedition were getting involved in recreating or trying to recreate the James Caird voyage, as in Shackleton and his 27 men, the Endurance is crushed and then it's down the bottom of the sea, and then there's that very famous lifeboat attempt to go from Elephant Island to South Georgia, Shackleton with 5 others. So amazing sailor and boat builder called Jarlath Canana in Mayo had built a replica, and he had got a group together including Paddy Barry, who's a very well-known Galway hooker sailor, and some of the members of the Everest expedition, Frank Nugent, who's a climber, not a sailor, Mike Barry from Kerry, who's also a climber but would have done some sailing, and then Jamie Young, who's from Killary, and he's done amazing adventures himself and sailor. So I went down to report on that, and I actually joined, I flew to Punta Arenas and then joined an icebreaker, a Russian icebreaker called Professor Molchanov, and it had the replica of James Caird on that, on its deck, and Jamie Young and the other members had already gone ahead. Okay. So I went down to Antarctica, joined them at Elephant Island to deliver the lifeboat replica, and saw them setting off, and then I had to stay with the ship and went down to the Antarctic Peninsula. But I suppose as part of that, long answer to your question, I would have read extensively about Shackleton. I'd also lived in Kildare for a while, so I'd have known a lot about Shackleton's links with Kildare.
Okay, and of course Shackleton was at times a journalist himself, which
he was,
must make it that bit more interesting.
Absolutely, and I was fascinated by his communication abilities.
Right, that's interesting, because I think it's something I would pick up with him as well. It's just his ability to express himself, and a situation, capture a situation in a few lines of poetry, maybe.
Exactly, but also somebody who 100 years ago knew how to control the narrative as well.
That's great. Well, see, we're getting into your speciality now. And I want to ask you, you're going to be talking to Mensun in half an hour. You looking forward to that?
Absolutely. I really admire his work, and then I suppose we all know where we were when we heard about the Endurance being found. It was one of those moments, we're still in COVID, we're sort of coming out of COVID 2 weeks after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Just bleak news, and then to hear about this find 3 miles down in Antarctica is extraordinary. But I suppose I would have been aware of his work beforehand. And I would have known about the Discovery Channel series and the Lost Ships. So it's incredible, and he has emphasised that it's a team effort, but his expertise, he's the one who had to design the search box. And keep everybody going on the expedition, working with all these experts. And congratulations for getting him here.
Well, thanks to you for coming, and I think exactly what you said, it was a bright moment in a bleak time, and I think Mensun's words, he felt the breath of Shackleton on the back of his neck. I think that for me, Shackleton just appeared when we needed him, So look, Lorna, thanks very much for this. And we look forward to your session later on today.
Thank you. And Mensun's book is a great read, by the way.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Okay.